Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to another session, a Matric Revision session on YouTube and also on Facebook, where we are bringing you the various revisions of the various papers heading up to the exams. Today, we'll be joined by Imran Majid as we focus on business studies, paper 1, section 3, and we'll be talking about how to recite an essay. We welcome you. If you're not able to stay for the entire live, you're welcome to still go back. The videos will remain up on YouTube and Facebook, and also please do like and share these far and wide to see if anyone else can also benefit from them. We start off, obviously, as we mentioned, with how to write an essay, the headline that is for today, and Imran joins me in the studio. Imran, assalamu alaikum, and I hand over to you.
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back, guys. Welcome to session 3. Today we would focus on how to write an essay. We are still busy with paper 1, so basically we are still busy with business environments and business operations. Remember, guys, it is still split into subtopics where we have business environments, which is split into business sectors, business strategies, and business legislation. And for operations, we have HR, human resource management, and we have total quality management. Every business paper has a section C. There's always an essay question and it counts for 40 marks. You have a choice between question 5, and question 6. It is either business environment or business operations. So when starting off the essay, you don't need to be afraid. So we just change to the next slide. You do not need to be afraid when writing an essay, guys. So when writing an essay, we need to focus on 5 main things, which is on the next slide. So the 5 main things are called FLASO. This is how your educators mark, and the mark is at the end of the year. So the F stands for facts, L stands for layout, A stands for analysis, S stands for synthesis, and O stands for originality. So LASO, you can get free 8 marks there besides your facts. So what we're going to do now, we're going to explain each term and what it actually means to gain our free marks. So we move down to the next slide. So step 1, firstly we write down the correct question number. For example, we either write down question 5, which would be business environments essay, or we need to choose between question 5 and 6. Question 6 obviously would be your business operations essay. We move to the next slide, which is step 2. So here what you need to do is you have to write the word introduction, or you won't get marks for that. And also you need to write the same with conclusion. However, merely writing these 2 words doesn't guarantee you the marks. You also need to contextualize the question, and for 2 sentences you'll get 1 mark each. You cannot repeat the question, so you need to write down the definition of the topic. You can't say, for example, in my essay I'll be telling you about the 8 business functions. You cannot do that. You can start like this: every business needs the 8 business functions to operate. So that's how you start off your essay. With your conclusion, you're merely going to summarize your facts in 1 sentence. So basically that's how you're going to get your 2 marks. So you can get 6 to 8 marks basically by just writing down introduction, having your 2 points, and then conclusion and having your 1 point. So there are your 3 marks. We move down to the next one. Step 3. So what you have to do, you have to study the 4 bullets in your essay question and choose 2 facts relating to the bullets as your introduction, as we said, and then note rewriting of a scenario, you get 0 marks. So you can't repeat what's given in the scenario. We move to the next slide. Step 4. Note, do not write the word body. Make use of the bullets as subheadings. Each bullet listed in the question must be down as subheadings in your answer. Failing to do so can result in you not addressing all 4 bullets in your answer and thus losing a mark for analysis. So yes, our next part is analysis and interpretation. So what you need to do here is you're going to look at, did you break down the question? Did you interpret it properly? So by your body, did you use headings and subheadings? So the first A that you will get is, did you discuss all points asked in the question with a heading for each? The second A, for the second mark, if your facts are 16 plus bullets or points. So if you have 16 plus bullets or points, you get an extra A. So there you will get your second A for analysis. So based on introduction and conclusion, you will then write down your 4 headings given to you, and if you have more than 16 points, you'd get an extra A, which is 2 marks now for your analysis. We move over to the next slide. So the next slide, step 5, is circle the cognitive verb in each of the bullets on your question paper. This will help you to formulate your answer to address each bullet. Elaborate on, explain how, recommend ways, and advise businesses. We move to step 6 on the next page. So before we talk about that, let's just talk about the synthesis. So the fourth one we get is synthesis. It's relevant. So firstly, you are putting together facts, or you are going to go off, so you're going to be tangent, meaning if you go off topic, you will get a minus S. So minus S is when you go off topic. So synthesis is basically, are you giving relevant information? So you'll get a minus S in the margin. If you're talking about marketing and you go off topic and maybe talk about human resources, which is non-relevant to the topic, we would give you a minus S. If you do it twice, you get 0 marks. If everything you have written is relevant, we give you the 2 marks for synthesis. So in a nutshell, you start off with 2 S's. We then subtract an S for large open spaces or irrelevant answers not linked for a question. So on the same slide we are, step 6, we start answering the question, making use of bullets to list the facts. Remember to quote 2 original examples or references of trending news events or relating to the question in detail. So the O stands for originality, as we know. So this means, have you given examples of your own? Have you given current trends or developments? So you look at recent information. So basically would give you an O if learn displays insight or provides real life examples or provides general knowledge. So we move down to the next slide, where you write down the word conclusion. Failing to do so can result in no marks awarded for layout for conclusion, meaning you will get only 1 L, which is only 1 mark. We move down to the next one. So one fact relating to the question, please take care not to repeat any fact already listed. Avoid a vague conclusion. Rewriting of scenario equals to 0 marks. So the first one, which we now are discussing last, is facts. So F is the first one, but we are now discussing it as last. So facts is 32 marks. We mark the first 32 answers, so you can write as much as you can. So it is easy to get this 32 marks. Remember, when you write the content in your body, it has to be in bullet point form for every new answer. I also I also say to my kids, if you think writing one page is enough, you are wrong. You need to write between 3 and 4 pages to ensure that you get the maximum content in and to give you the highest mark possible. We move to the last slide of this PowerPoint. So it's possible. Don't forget your originality marks. Remember FLASO. This is the best way to get your marks, especially those free 8 marks. You get L, you get the A, you get the S, and you get the O. So the L is for layout, you get 2 marks for mentioning your introduction and conclusion. Your A is for your analysis, where you give the relevant information. The next one is S, your synthesis, is now where we give your next 2 marks for your 16 plus answers. And the last one is your O for originality, where you give your own examples. So now what we're going to do now is we're going to talk about, or we're going to go over an essay. We're going to go over an environments essay so you can see how to do an essay and that you're not so afraid. Basically, all you need to know is the content and you will be ready for the essay. So let's just move over to our next PowerPoint. So we are here now. It is the essay question which was given in June 2019. Question 7. So basically we only have question 5 and 6 now, so this would be question 5. Let's read the scenario. The Employment Equity Act, EEA 1998, Act 55 of 1998, was introduced to promote equity in the workplace. Businesses are obliged to comply with the requirements of the Act or face penalties for non-compliance. As an expert on recent legislation, write an essay on the following EEA aspects. So these are the 4 bullet points that I've been talking about that you need to have as headings in your essay. Firstly, it is outline the purpose of the Employment Equity Act, discuss the impact of this act on businesses, then advise businesses on the consequences or penalties they may face for not complying with the EEA. Suggest practical ways in which businesses can comply with these acts. So, some of us do not like legislation because we consider it difficult. Something is only difficult if we do not understand it, guys. But if we understand the terms better, we will be able to answer them more easily. So, on the next slide, we would go over the Employment Equity Act terminology. We look at economic imbalances, transformation, paid equally, discrimination, fair, victimization, inclusive, appointment process, affirmative action, administration, expensive, conflict, labor inspectors, just to name a few. Remember, we're going over labor relations, and that is the relationship between the employer and the employee. We move down to the next slide where we look at economic imbalances. Economic imbalance means that there is inequality in the economy. People do not earn the same income, usually very rich and very poor, with few middle class, so there is an imbalance. Remember, if we're all doing the same type of job, we're supposed to get the same amount of money. There should not be inequality where, or some type of wrongdoings where the one earns higher than the other, whereas we are doing the same job. We move down to the next slide where we look at transformation. When something transforms, it means that the appearance changes. In this context, the workplace is changing. Where white people were offered more jobs in the past, there are now more equal opportunities for all. Where we look at, if we look at the other legislation where we mentioned the BBBEE broad-based black economic empowerment, where we now have to have a certain amount of people of color in the business. We move down to the next slide, which we now talk about the paid equally. In the past, not everyone received the same payment. Men were normally paid more than women because men were considered more important. Equal pay means that everyone, regardless of race, gender, culture, religion, must be paid the same for similar work. Remember, back then, or we still have the stereotypical thoughts where only men can be bus drivers, only men can work as construction workers. That has changed, boys and girls. Both men and women can do these things, and they must be paid equally if they are doing the same job. We move down to the next slide, which is discrimination. Discrimination is the unfair or detrimental treatment of different categories of people. People are categorized according to race, gender, language, or religion. So discrimination cannot take place. We all need to be treated fairly. So this is the Employment Equity Act, where everything and everyone needs to be treated fairly. We move to the next slide, where we talk about fair. The way people are treated, it is a person's behavior without favoritism or discrimination. So no one can be favored, whether you are male, whether you are female. Yes, I know some of you guys have heard in many businesses where these things happen. But then the Employment Equity Act takes place. So when this takes place, these things cannot happen. Because why? If the management doesn't do anything, we can now go down to the CCMA and they will now take charge and bring in a private investigator to look at what's happening. We move down to the next slide. The next slide is victimization. It is the action of singling someone out for unfair treatment. This can be considered as a type of bullying by employers. Yes, it is a type of bullying, but what you do is you go to the person secretly and then you go tell them, look, what you are doing is wrong. You need to change your ways before we take it up with management. So victimization is wrong when you call out someone in the business in front of everyone. So rather go to them and tell them what they're doing is wrong. And if they are continuing doing it, now need to tell management and then things will be taken further. They would get a warning. So remember, you need to get 3 warnings before you are fired. The next slide, inclusive. When none of the employees involved in something or a group are excluded. So inclusive meaning we need to now add everyone. So everyone needs to be a part of what we are doing in the business. So yes, we have many different departments, especially within the business, which we now talk about micro environment, which takes place within the business, where the business now has full control. We talk about the 8 business functions. So in the 8 business functions, everyone needs to be inclusive because everyone is doing their own work. And when we come together, we now form the business, and we now so that the business can succeed. We move down to the next slide. The next slide is appointment process. The process that must be followed step by step with appointments of employees. The process must be fair and transparent to prevent discrimination. We move down to the next one, which is affirmative action. Affirmative action, the practice or policy of favoring individuals who belong to groups that have previously been discriminated against. So let's read that one again to get a better understanding. The practice or policy of favoring individuals who belong to groups that have been previously discriminated against. So yes, we know in apartheid some of our people have been discriminated. against. So those people cannot be favored. We in a new regime where South Africa, we follow a status of Ubuntu, meaning where everyone is equal. We're in a democracy. Therefore, whether we are black, white, colored, Indian, Asian, we all need to be treated fairly, and therefore no discrimination should take place. We move down to the next one, which is administration. So what is administration? It is tasks related to running an office. Administrative staff are appointed to complete these tasks. So remember guys, what we are going over is the different terminologies. So the different terminologies, these terminologies you need to know before you can actually write the essay. So once you know the different type of knowledge, different type of terminologies, you'll be able to write any of the legislation essays. We move down to the next slide, which is expensive. Expensive in this regard, it refers to an extra expense for the business. A specialist or expert usually has high costs. So yes, when getting an expert into the business, we now pay more money for them. Basically, sometimes we do need an expert to come into the business to help us run our business, to check if our day-to-day runnings are run properly. Especially when it comes to finance, we need to now get in an auditor. So that is a huge expense. They now check if our money and everything is run smoothly, so that no one steals money and that our money is safe. We move down to the next one, which is conflict. Conflict is very easy because we all know this. It is a serious disagreement or argument between two or more people. We move down to the next one, which is labor inspectors. So appointed by the Department of Labor to notify employers and employees of the rights and duties in respect of employment. They inspect the workplace and investigate complaints by employers and employees. So this one, basically you also need to know when it comes to the CETAs, because it is the same thing when it comes to Employment Equities Act. This is the reason why I say once we know these different types of terminologies, we will be able to answer the essay. The next one is compliance order. An order issued which requires an employer to comply with certain rules or regulations. So remember in the previous essay that we've spoken about, or you guys wrote in your mock exams, where they asked you for non-compliance. So the non-compliance is the opposite of compliance. So if you're not complying, you're then non-complying, which means you're doing something wrong. For example, with the COIDA, or as I would say COIDA, where my learners would laugh at that, but all of us know it as COIDA. So with COIDA, if a person does not go and tell the manager or someone that he has been injured, or someone now bribes him to say that don't go tell the managers that you've been injured, and then we will actually pay you. This is non-compliance because this is very, very wrong. You need to comply with your acts. We move down to the next one, which is heavy fines. Fines are given if a business does not comply with the order. And this happens in all the acts. If a business does not comply with the acts, they will get heavy fined and they will be sent to court. The next one we talk about is representation. The composition of employees must represent the composition of the population of the basis of race, gender, and language. The second last one would be, for the terminology, would be the Department of Employment and Labour is the Department of South African government that is responsible for the employment matters. So the next slide we talk about financial implications. So what is this? Financial implications are the implied or realized outcomes of any financial decision. And while the phrase often has a slightly negative connotation, financial implications can be good or it can be bad. The financial implication of saving money, for example, is an increase in your net worth. Let me say it again. The financial implication of saving money, for example, is an increase in your net worth. So we move down to the next slide. So as I spoke about this before in the previous PowerPoint presentation, we're going to speak about it again on how to write the perfect introduction. A valid introduction must be based on the specific topic chosen. So write introduction and underline it. Please underline your headings. Do not repeat facts or points given in the question. Write 2 sentences for your introduction. So the tip is your sentence of facts should ideally address any 2 of the 4 bullet points without repeating facts in the body. So now let's try this and look at the essay question on the next page. How to write the perfect essay. Do not rewrite the scenario. So let's read it again. The Employment Equity Act, EEA 1995, Act 55 of 1998, was introduced to promote equity in the workplace. Businesses are obliged to comply with requirements of the Act or face penalties for non-compliance. As an expert on recent legislation, write an essay on the following EEA aspects. So firstly, we're going to write about the purpose of the Employment Equity Act. Then we're going to discuss the impact of this act on businesses. We will then advise businesses on the consequences or penalties they may face for not complying with the EEA. Then we're going to suggest practical ways in which businesses can comply with this act. So let's go to the next slide. Introduction. So what we're going to write here is, the purpose of this act is to ensure that transformation takes place in the workplace. So do you see now how we're actually bringing about the terminologies that we have just spoken about? We don't start our introduction by saying, in this essay, I'll be speaking about the Employment Equity Act. That is totally wrong. We start off by saying the purpose of this act is to ensure that transformation takes place in the workplace within the economic imbalances of the past. So what do we do now by the body on the next slide? So firstly, we go to the first line of our question, which is we need to now discuss the purpose of the Employment Equity Act. Therefore, we now write down a heading of purpose of the Employment Equity Act. We then underline it and we go ahead. We go ahead by saying the Employment and Equity Act allows employees who do not work to be paid equally. It eliminates discrimination on grounds of gender, race, disability in the workplace, as well as promotes equal opportunity and fair treatment in the business. It also protects employees from victimization if they exercise the rights given to them by the EEA. Remember, you need to write the essay in bullet point form. This makes it easier for your marker to read and give you the marks. We move to the next one, which is the impact of the EEA on businesses. Here you will basically just write the advantages and disadvantages. So the tip here, it is recommended that the impact, advantage and disadvantage should be done in the table to help you lay out your thoughts systematically. This is where you will now receive your mark for synthesis and analysis. We move down to our next one, which is our penalties for non-compliance to the EEA. So remember, we said compliance is following the rules. Our non-compliance is now not following the rules and doing things wrong. So what we would write here is labor inspectors can investigate complaints and ask questions about complaints. Labor inspectors can issue a compliance order to the business if they do not comply with the EEA. And businesses found guilty can receive heavy fines. So do you see now where our terminology takes place? In each sentence we use one of those words of the terminology that we have spoken about. This makes it easier. So once you have that understanding, you can now draw up your essay. So remember, you need to go and study your notes. Make sure you understand it, because once you understand it, it is better for you to write instead of memorizing it. So yes, memorize it. There's nothing wrong with it, but make sure you understand it. So the note to this is that the penalties for not complying with the EA are because of a business not complying with a compliance order served by labor inspectors, or by not complying with a ruling by the labor court if they are found guilty. We move down to the next slide. Practical ways how business can comply with the EEA. So this is how they can comply with the EEA. So basically, how can they comply? They ensure that there's equal representation of all racial groups at every level of employment. They also submit the employment equity plan to the Department of Labor. The Originality, the Amendment Act requires that a certificate be issued to employers confirming that they comply with the Employment Equity Act. We also can say, maybe you saw a movie or you watched even a soapy on TV where you now saw that people were treated unfairly in a business. So then you just write that down as another example to get you 2 marks, because you need to have 2 examples to get 2 marks for your originality. Those are to make up your free 8 marks, guys. So basically, you can't actually fail an essay if you just follow the step-by-step instruction and give the given facts. We move down to the last slide, which is our conclusion. So penalties for non-compliance have a negative financial implication for businesses. See how easy it is to write a conclusion. Just 1 sentence, that's all you need. 1 sentence where you sum up what you have written in your body. So just look closely. Introduction, we've given you 2 marks. The purpose of the Employment Equity Act, 10 marks. Impact of EEA on businesses, 16 marks. Penalties for non-compliance, 8 marks. Compliance of the Employment Equity Act, 12 marks. And then conclusion, 2 marks. So if we add it up properly, we'll get 2 plus 10 is 12. 12 plus 16 is 28. 28 plus 8 is 36. 36 plus 12 is 48. Plus 2 is 50 marks. So there's a maximum of 50 marks, but we mark the first 32 or any 32 answers that we do get. So you can write 50 facts and we mark 32. That's how you get 4 marks. Plus your 8 free marks for Flasso. So Flasso is your facts, your 32 marks. L, your layout, 2 marks. Your A for analysis, 2 marks. S for synthesis, 2 marks. And O for originality, we get it 2 marks. So that's how you get your 40 marks for your essay. So that basically rounds up our section C, which is our essay. I hope this makes it much easier for you to write an essay. Do you guys see now how easy it is to write an essay? You basically just need to understand your content or your terminology in order to write the essay. So session 1, we went over our multiple choice question, our section A questions. Session 2, we went over our long questions. And now session 3, we've gone over our section C questions, which is our essay type questions. So we're going to round up the lesson. I just want to tell you guys good luck for your paper. next week. Everything of the best. I hope you guys go in there with a clear mind. Think about nothing, just go in there and do your best. I am rooting for you, your educators are rooting for you, and make yourselves proud, your parents proud, and your teachers proud.
Imran, I want to say a big shukran to you for joining us. And just before you go, if people would like to get a hold of you regarding the lesson today, or if they would like to approach you for private tutoring, how can they reach you?
So you can contact me on my cell phone number 061 359 4637, or you can just email me. My email address is Imran, IMRAAN 218246870 at gmail.com.
Imran Majid, once again, shukran so much. All the best. And yeah, we look forward to our next session.
Shukran. Salam.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Well, that was Imran Majid. This has been Business Studies, Paper 1, Section 3, How to Write an Essay. We hope that you've drawn tremendous benefit from it. Do be advised that the lessons do stay up on YouTube and Facebook. You can go back and check them out. Please do like and share as well so that others may benefit from these lessons. And if you've missed any, you can always go back. As we mentioned, they stay up on the Facebook and YouTube page for further reference. Screenshot wherever you need to spend a little more time with the concept. Well, from myself, Muhammad Fasih Peterson, I bid you assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and have a safe day further.